Hi, everybody, and welcome. As always, it is so good to have you with us today. They are mourning the dead in Roseburg, Oregon, just as they have done in so many other American communities. Innocent victims, many of them very young, shot dead for no reason. A cycle of senseless slaughter that dwarfs what other nations experience. So what can we as citizens do? What should we be demanding of our political leaders? Rev Jesse Jackson Sr. is head of the Rainbow Push Coalition and joins us now. Reverend, it's always great to have you with us. Thanks for being with us today.
Well, good to hear you and to share in this most critical conversation in this epidemic of violence in our country, which is escalating. There are several reasons, it seems. One is that of mental illness. A number of mentally ill people have access to guns, and some who are temporarily insane because of fits of anger. When there's a gun in the house, it tends not to protect you from the robber as an act, because it tends to make you shoot one another when there's conflict. The impact of domestic violence shootings is really in homicide and then suicide. Most people who kill each other, in fact, know each other. It's not political, it is emotional. Secondly, there's the issue of poverty, where people feel they've lost hope and have no way out. But I would say that the indifference to it is significant. The president calls numb. There's a big focus today on Oregon. It was on the reporters in West Virginia last week. But 60 were killed in Chicago this past month, and there are no cameras there. The president is not there. We lost 350 to gun deaths in Chicago this year. 2,400 have been shot who did not die. And those who are killed are buried rather quickly. Those who are shot and injured sometimes live 40 and 50 years. The expense is huge expense. That's why I'm feeling for the White House comments on violence in Chicago, the epicenter of so much of the violence in America today.
Can you speak to the sense that many have that we clearly have major problems, or a major problem that has component pieces to it, but that we can't even we're so stymied, our politics is so gridlocked that it's hard to figure out where a collective conversation might begin, much less point to an outcome.
Begun, sometimes it starts tongue and with the mindset. I mean, we were stunned by the 9/11 attack on us, and then we hit the wrong target and killed thousands of people and lost trillions of dollars. And for that, we've offered no apology and we're indifferent to it. That's a bad deal. Many of those who come back home from the war, traumatized, but have easy access to guns, they're involved in these spats as well. And so I'm convinced that the safety lock is the first step. But those who support the gun NRA don't even want even the least encroachment upon their right to have guns, included that was not meant by the founding fathers. They never saw a Glock. They never saw a semi-automatic weapon. And I think ultimately Homeland Security has a role to play, because these guns can not only shoot classrooms and churches, they can also shoot down planes. We're all in danger until these guns are removed from the streets. These are military-style weapons.
Can you talk about the mental health component? It seems huge and underaddressed.
Well, in each instance, in the Sandy Hook case, in the Colorado case, we're told after the fact mental illness, but they got the guns legally. That in itself shows that there's a hole in the inner tube that has coming out. The fact that mentally ill people pass no background check, apparently not an insufficient one, and often more than one weapon. And so mental illness is a big factor in this. And also the culture of glorifying guns as fashionable and as a remedy. The narrative, I got to have several guns in my house to protect myself from the robber. Very seldom does the robber come in that way. Usually it is in some innocent children shot in school, or shot in church, or shot on the streets. And we must break the psychic need for guns as a remedy, killing as a remedy. We must, in fact, mentally go another way.
But doesn't it seem like...
The tech says, the leadership says, well, they 200,000 refugees are running for their lives, and they come and we're going to kick them right back out. That's violent. There's 11 million refugees, 11 million immigrants in the country who are struggling to survive and keep their families together. Put all of them out, let them come back in. Well, It sounds tough on the campaign trail, but that's very violent language.
Doesn't it seem like there are significant unmet mental health needs through our communities, through our population, through our families, even almost separate from the gun conversation? I mean, doesn't what we're experiencing cry out for all of us, particularly probably at the state and local level, to do more?
As opposed to closing them down, we're closing them rather than erecting them, and training people to, in fact, administer the remedy for many of these illnesses that people have. If someone comes in the emergency room and they're bleeding, you can immediately get, adhesive or get some kind of tape it up. But because they're mentally disturbed, we make people ashamed of it. And two, when it's detected, don't do much about it. But these are very real people, very real problems. And sometimes mental illness is episodic. It's sane one moment and not sane the next. You resolve the conflict one moment, you're not the next. These persons who go through these changes need help. And we need help because they need help because they have access to weapons of war.
You know what it is to run for president. You know what it is to travel the country and try to engage on major policy issues. What's your hope for this extended presidential selection process that we're involved in now? It'll be primary mostly, but we'll get to the general at some point.
On violence in Chicago, because we have Sandy Hook, and we have Charleston, and we have Oregon. But the most of these killings are coming at this point from Chicago. Guns in, drugs in, jobs out, and despair. Secondly, the indifference based upon race. 60 killed in Chicago. We have an Oregon every weekend in Chicago, and we seem to have adjusted to it, a kind of numbness to it. We must not adjust to this level of killing. It is normal, but it is not natural. Normal, but not natural. We need a real serious conference on violence. I would urge it to be in Chicago when the president don't want to have the authority to convene the people to be a part of such a dynamic session. We need it. Because right now we're killing each other, which is a terrible thing to happen. But these guns can wreak havoc across the borders. They can wreak havoc to airplanes and the trains. They're the stuff of which terrorism are made. And so it's very dangerous and very expensive. So it costs more to not do it than to do it.
Can you talk about the gathering you had just a few hours ago?
I'm sorry.
You convened an event just 24
in Chicago on yesterday. We convened state legislators and city and council leaders and Congress people and ministers. And the crowd was, for one, stronger background checks, two, more mental health facilities, three, don't be indifferent because it's race, and four, don't be because that's so critical. In other words, 60 killed in Chicago, and that's not in the mix at this point. 350 killed. This year talked about 350 Americans killed in Chicago. 2,400 shot in that same period of time, and there has not been the same outcry. We know that the race and class effect of blacks kill whites is jail time. Whites kill blacks is a rebellion time. Blacks kill blacks is miller time. We cannot adjust each killing based upon race.
Finally, Reverend Jackson, there are so many gun owners in America, undoubtedly millions, because we have so many guns. I think we can stipulate there are millions of responsible gun owners who use their weapons for hunting, recreation, and self-defense, and who are safe in how they store their weapons. Is their voice missing from this mix?
Well, the fact is that guns for hunting has a place, in my judgment, and on reservations has a place. Even these dangerous weapons in one's house is the stuff of which domestic violence occurs when there's the least bit of anger. One has an internal solution for a temporary problem called shoot somebody and shut them up. Somebody couldn't turn the argument off. The level of domestic violence is a big factor. Suicide is a big factor, and homicide is yet another factor. We lose 30,000 Americans a year to gun violence. We lost 6,000 troops in Iraq in 10 years. and $30,000 a year at home. Obviously, that is not a pretty neither the same picture.
Always great having you on. We thank you very much for your time, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Sr., head of the Rainbow Push Coalition. We appreciate your time and hope to visit with you here in the studio the next time you're in town. We'll take a quick break. We're back with much more News Talk right after this.